Hey guys, it's Nick Folks here with Folks Custom Cranks, bringing you guys another episode of the Baitcast. We hope you enjoy what you've been seeing, and we're going to continue to bring this. So, for me and Mason, guy behind the mic, behind the computer, is we just appreciate you guys watching every week, and hope to keep bringing you guys some cool videos. So, today we're going to kind of talk about a couple different things. We're going to bring up about last episode about the new bait with Folks Bait Company, and then later in the episode too, I'm going to talk about jerk baiting. Completely not related, but it is jerk bait season. Fish Lake Erie a lot, so maybe offer you guys some tips or tricks or whatever, something different for you guys to think. But we'll start talking about Folks Bait Company. If you follow along on social media and such, you'll see that the first run of the prototype baby crankbait, I still need a name suggestion for it, so please below just put some suggestions for the name of that bait. We should call it not the color name, but the bait itself. Of course, it used to be called the Baby 1 Minus. I'm not going to call it that going forward, just so I don't get in trouble with who bought Mans. So just give me some bait names. You know, I'm down for anything. Anything you suggest, put it in the books and see what happens. And if your name's picked, we'll send you out a little care package and everything. So got all those sealed together. We got them put together with the lead BBs. I did have those come in since the last video, so we assembled 34 of them total. Literally, you just use super glue. That's what they did back in the day. You just use super glue on the halves, put your hook hangers in, which are from Worth, put your lead BBs, standard size BB. We're using 2 as the ballast weight and 2 right now as the rattle weight. We'll have to play around. That's getting it to be the exact same weight as it was before. I understand, with the 2 rattles, if you're wanting a rattling bait like a rattle trap, you might want some more rattles in that chamber. So we can play around with, making the rattles smaller in size, but adding more so it's the same weight as original. But so far, I like the way it has the 2 ballast weight and then the 2 rattle weight with the lead BBs. I think it has a cool sound. I'd have them in front of me here, but they're still in the drying rack. Our clear coat takes about 5 days-ish to cure, and you really don't want to touch it from the time you dip it till it's fully hardened, just because whatever oils, no matter how clean your hands are, you'll always mess up that bait. So I try not to touch baits until they're fully hard and cure and ready for pictures and be sent out. So did those. If you saw the picture, we'll edit some pictures in of the prototype runs. Like I said, there's 34. I wanted something, because it's a prototype, I'm going to send them out to you guys in the bait club box to try and let me know how you guys like them. So I wanted it kind of in the style of test dummy colors, which is like car industry is yellow and black. Anything's the test dummy is always yellow and black. I'd be like, oh, that's cool. Let's do a yellow and black. I have a color Hornet, which is pretty popular, which is a chartreuse with a black back and a little bit of, I don't know if it's a brown or green. It's one of them colors I can't tell underneath the scale effect. And it's just a cool color. It's not your typical chartreuse and black bait. So that's what I did on those. I did a just kind of modified version of that Hornet color, did it all orange belly. And then on the bottom of the bait, you'll see some writing. With it being the first run, I just wanted to make sure we could tell, if I ever do that color again, hey, these were the very first run, like the prototype run. It'd be cool if you're into collecting baits. And, I painted 34 of them. 2 are for me, one's from me, one's from my dad. You'll see in the pictures I wrote our names right behind the bill. I put Nick Folks and Ryan Folks. So then there's 32 rests that are going to be out there. 2 of those are out for the people who helped me in the last video, get me the information. Good friends of mine, I just want to hook them up. I own way more than just sending them, to a bait each, but I just thought that'd be cool. That way they have a piece of, not history, but, a piece of the new company and can see what we're going to do, make happen. So that leaves the 30 left that are available to you guys. Hopefully next week we'll have the bait club box up here and, we'll go through it. We'll open it up. Of course, we know for sure in each one of those bait club boxes is going to be one of those prototype baits that we need names for. I know I spoke about putting, Eagle Claw or Trocar hooks on it just for the prototype release. I'm not going to have an American made hook on it just because I literally have 10,000 BKKs right here next to me, and BKK is a great hook. But in the, when we release these baits to the public, I want to make sure it has an American made hook just so it's American made bait and complete, which is, cool, and we can talk about that later. But that Hornet color, you'll see it has FBC, Folks Bait Company. It's just the easiest way to put that on the bait. Usually I put a Folks sticker on the Folks Custom Cranks baits if you've bought stuff from me in the past. So it has FBC, that's what it stands for, and then it's going to say 525. If you look on my bait, it says 524 because I forgot what year it was for a second. So the 525 just means May of 2025. That's when we're releasing the bait. Of course, I painted it a couple days ago, but it'll be available during the month of May in the May Bait Club box. And then at the very end, it'll say out of 34. That's just numbered out of the bait. I think I have number 1. My dad has number 2. Number 3 and 4 are going to go to my buddy of mine with the information for everything they've done for me. And then, from 5 on is going to be sent randomly in the Bait Club boxes. So it'd be cool. You'll have a piece of history, if you want to call it history, just so you know exactly which number yours was painted and came off the production line, aka just my garage. So, I think that would be cool. I've had a lot of guys wanting to buy them, and, of course, these are going to be available for sale eventually, but them being a prototype run, I just want to make sure we get all the kinks worked out of them. I don't want to sell a bait that, has an issue or whatever. So I thought this would be the fairest way. If you want to test out the bait and let me know, I'm not afraid. If you tell me it sucks, I'm not offended. So I just want to see what your guys' thoughts are before, we release this bait and have any issues down the line. Just want to do my due diligence in making a good bait, an American-made bait for you guys. So that's kind of the update on that. I have bought some stuff, some tooling and stuff to make it easier for me to put the baits together. Of course, when you have a bait in halves, you got to glue it together. So I bought a little bit thicker and quicker setting of a super glue to use to seal the baits together. The stuff I used on the prototypes was nothing wrong with it, but it was just a little thin. It ran. So I just want something that's has more this solid to it, isn't just a super running super glue. So got some really good stuff. It came into the house. I have the Worth hook hangers on the way because I just bought 100 packs of each size when I bought them to figure out which size would work on the base. So of course, I was only able to produce 33 baits with the correct hook hangers. The one hook hanger I used on the very first bait was just a little big. It was the size bigger than the size I went with. Of course, that's on my bait. I didn't want to make someone else get something that's not what in my mind looks perfect on the bait. So doing that, I got some rubber blocks to help seal the bait together. You have to really crunch that bait together hard to get it to stick and seal and all completely 360 around the bait on that edge to make sure you have no issues. And of course, after this, it gets painted and clear coated again. So it's in the end, it's one final piece, but we just really got to make sure the bait's sealed together correctly. So that's just fun stuff. You guys don't have to worry about that. That's all on me. That's all in the production of the bait. So it's been fun. Been doing that this past week when we had no power for 3 to 5 days, depending where you were in Pittsburgh. Thankfully we got power on somewhat fast back. Of course, we had to throw away all of our groceries and all that. Do have a generator now that we rid off for business purposes because you need power to paint. So I wasn't able to paint for the last 3 days. So I got that generator and worked on some stuff inside, candlelight, literally just doing, made all those prototypes in the dark during the day and then at night in the dark next to a candle. So that's been my week. We'll get into it. The other thing I know I brought up, about being American made, not going to get political or anything, but, there are tariffs and taxes coming along. And if you look, most of those tariffs and taxes are focused on anything that's produced not in America. For example, in the tackle industry, everyone's talking about, who knows, but everyone's claiming that there's going to be anywhere from a 10 to 40% increase in prices. The reason behind that is because everything's made in China or outside of China. Now, if you're making something in America and you're selling it in America, there's 0 tariffs on it outside of your normal stuff. So there's no additional cost to having something built in America right now, which, this crankbait we're probably going to sell for $15, which, may seem high for a crankbait, but take any other brand, say Rapala, if it's not made in China, but it's made overseas. It's all over the place how much a Rapala DT sells for. Let's just say a safe price is $10 on it. I know like Tackle Warehouse and other places may be selling it for $11 and more. But just say it's $10. So if that goes up 40%, that's going to be a $14 crankbait and it's made overseas. So if you're paying $15 for an American made crankbait, you're paying $1 more. It's being made by me, made with American made internals and everything. So I just think, maybe this coming year, I was talking to my buddy Jesse on his podcast about it, that you may see a rise in American-made companies due to this. And at the end of the day, maybe it's not bad for everyone. You just got to take advantage of the situation, which is what, growing up, my mom taught me pretty much everything I know in business. you're not taking advantage of people, but you know how to work in a situation and make it good for everyone. So I really appreciate her, passing along all of her knowledge growing up doing yard sales, and every week either buying stuff at a yard sale, selling stuff at a yard sale, whatever is kind of how I started in business in general. So just using what I learned to see, maybe this year is the year where we can start having more American-made companies in the fishing tackle industry, which is, been a goal of mine since I started Folks Custom Cranks. So with Folks Bait Company, we might see if we can make that achievable and make it a household name brand eventually one day if we can partner up with some bigger companies and help production wise. So that's pretty much it about the Folks Bait Company and all the updates on that. We're going to pause the video. We're going to get back into it. We're going to talk about jerk baiting. I've been fishing Erie, helping buddies out, not guiding, but fishing Erie pretty much since we got home from shows for 3 months now. It's been a fun time. Erie is always a blast. It's my favorite place to fish. I grew up fishing Lake Erie. So we'll get into that. We'll take a little break and get back to you in a few minutes. So now we're going to talk about jerkbait fishing, completely not related to anything we just talked about, but this is the season to be throwing jerkbait, especially like we talked about. I've grown up fishing Lake Erie. I'm a smallmouth nut, as if you follow along on social media or anything, you know that I love fishing on Lake Erie. I love fishing for big smallmouth, and literally how I grew up fishing for them was going up with my dad. Back in the day, of course, we didn't have a camp up there like we do now and the ability to go up whenever we wanted. So, just throughout the spring, every weekend, me and my dad would try to rent a hotel and go up and bang on some fish ever since probably I was 8 or 9. And first time I ever got a hook in my head, literally my head, I got it in my cheek, was on Erie. So, I've a lot of blood has been sheared into Lake Erie from me and my father. So it's been just home waters for the most part. Of course, we don't live up there, but in the summer we kind of do with our camper up there and everything. So we'll get into jerkbait fishing. I'm not a jerkbait expert by any means. I just feel like maybe if you can use some of the stuff I tell you, maybe this is a different look on some stuff that maybe you can apply it and catch you some more fish. Or if you're coming up to Erie, this will help you catch more fish if you ever come up to Erie. And any smallmouth place, really. How I fish a jerkbait is no different for largemouth or smallmouth for the most part. Just color-wise is what I throw is different. And we'll get into that, and we'll talk about my series of jerkbaits and everything, because if you see me up on Erie throwing a jerkbait, it's my own bait. I'm not throwing another brand's bait. That'd be silly to, sell a bait that you won't personally use. So I use everything I produce, I use. So that's why everything comes out of the box and everything how I would like it. So jerkbait fishing, it can be a curve to learn. I mean, you're not just casting something out, winding in, or working like a soft plastic. All the action's coming from you. Now you can cast it, and the jerkbait does have a little roll to it. And I mean, I'm sure you can catch fish just casting and winding a jerkbait like you would for salmon or walleye. But for smallmouth and largemouth, you really need to give it that erratic action, and you do that by snapping your rod. Now, lots of people on Erie, especially on the videos I've posted in the past couple of years or whatever, you'll see me lots of times throwing a spinning pole. I can say from experience, I love throwing a jerkbait on a spinning pole. It's just because you throw a jerkbait all day for 4 days and you catch 80 to 100 fish every day. Doing this with your bait caster, your wrist just feels dead after a day of doing it. For whatever reason, I can just, with spinning pole, of course I'm backwards. I bait cast on with the right and then spinning on the left, because that's how I was raised. That's how my dad does it. And everyone does it that way, unless you are smart and you realize you need a left-hander bait caster and a right-handed spinning. So I'm backwards like most people. So I get more use out of this wrist jerking a jerkbait like that. I don't know why, maybe just because I'm right-handed or whatever, but I do switch back and forth. I mean, you'll throw a jerkbait for 4 hours on a spinning pole, your wrist is going to get tired. You're going to just pick up the bait caster and kind of prolong your use, because a jerkbait is one of the most effective ways to catch fish in smallmouth right now in Lake Erie. Crankbaits are fun, A-rig, you can go out and live scope and do all that, but numbers-wise, if you want to put fish in the boat, you got to throw a jerkbait. So we'll get into kind of what I use. Of course, spinning pole-wise, whenever I throw it, it's nothing's fancy. I don't believe that you need to throw it on this or that. I just throw it on a 7-foot medium spinning pole. I use a braid to fluorocarbon leader on all my spinning poles. I don't know if it matters with it being braid to fluorocarbon. On my last trip, I went out with Buddy and Steve and John from Virginia. They were like, oh, he's throwing on spinning pole with the braid. Not saying it doesn't hurt it, but I don't know if it helps it or not. That's how I have all my spinning poles rigged up. I don't have any spinning pole rigged up with straight mono anymore, just because I like the feel of the braid. So whether you have a sinking braid, floating braid, I don't know if it matters. It's a jerk bait. They're, you're not letting the bait sit forever, especially on Erie. You're usually moving it pretty fast. So just whatever you're comfortable with. You don't need to make a specific setup to do it. Bait caster wise, same thing. I've just thrown a 7-foot medium bait caster all my life. Now, of course, the more I've grown and whatever, right here we have a 6'7" rod. We'll talk about it in a few, but the shorter the better for a jerk bait to whatever you're comfortable. And of course, if you're 7 feet tall, then it doesn't matter what you're going to throw it on. You're not going to be slapping the water. But I'm pretty short. I'm like 5'9", 5'10". So shorter rod helps me, especially because I have a walleye boat and the sides of it are so tall. So you just hate smacking the boat with your rod all day. So just find whatever works for you, honestly. Like I said, the 7-foot medium I've used for years. And I still have a 7-foot medium with a jerkbait tied on just to have a different color or something. So it's nothing crazy. You don't need to buy a specific setup to do it with. Line size, once again, on the bait caster, I really don't know if it matters a whole lot. I've always thrown 10 or 12. I think I have 12 pound on everything just because at the beginning of the year I buy just 1,000 or 3,000 yard spool of 10 or 12, and that's just what I go with pretty much everything. Yeah, I'm pretty simple line wise. I either have 12 or 20 on my bait casters. I don't have anything in between, just because I can make it work with everything. But jerk bait 10 to 12. I wouldn't go any bigger than 12. And then you could throw lighter line, but your bait's going to dive deeper. And then, it's smallmouth. They go nuts when you catch them. So I just like having a little bit more thicker line just for the fact that I don't have to retie every hour. So it's basically the only reason I run with 12. So this rod I have here, it's pretty cool. Obviously, I don't sell these. I just become a big fan of Daiwa over the years. So what makes this rod pretty cool is this is a Daiwa Salamandora, which is not a JDM rod or reel. This whole combo is a Daiwa Salamandora, but it's actually a Korean/Asian market. And it's just a Tatula rod and it's a Tatula reel, but with just a fancy paint job. So it's, I bought it. I thought it was cool. I'm not selling these or anything. It's not a JDM anything. It's actually Asian, but it's cool. It's I think they call it a Salamandora SV, which is the not super free, whatever SV, stress free something. It's just their version of the DC. It's not as noisy as the DC. If you're around a Curado DC, you hear that. Zzz. This one's a lot quieter than that, and it kind of does the same thing. I'm not saying it's better or worse, but I bought a Tatula SV 1 year, and slowly but surely I've switched over all my reels pretty much to Tatula SVs, that kind of deal. So, I really enjoy those reels. It's not like they're super light. They're not super heavy. It's just a good workhorse reel. So this one's in a 7-gear ratio. When you're throwing a jerk bait, anything above 6-gear ratio is fine. If you throw it on a 5-gear ratio for whatever reason, if you have an super old reel, or if you're just on a cranking setup, you're going to be reeling a lot all day, but you can make it work with everything. It's not like you need this exact setup to go catch fish. You can, whatever you have, you can throw a jerk bait on a push button and catch fish. So it's whatever you're comfortable with. I like a faster gear ratio, of course, because it's, it lets me reel in the bait a little bit faster when you're working it with the slack, which we'll get into the cadence in a second. But 7 to 1's good with me. You don't want to go super fast, just because with me, this isn't a jerkbait only setup. I can throw crankbaits on the setup. It's whatever. I just like having setups I can do a whole lot with. So I just like 7-gear ratio. It works for everything. So cadence wise, with a jerkbait, I've honestly stuck to one cadence my whole life, and it's the same cadence my dad taught me. With live scope and stuff, I've changed it a little bit, seeing if it makes a difference. But blind casting or live scope, doesn't matter how you fish a jerkbait. I do 2-1. So cast it, bam, bam, hit him twice, pause it for however long you want to do. The pause is if it's colder, you want to pause it for longer, obviously. We all know that. But smallmouth usually like it faster. They're just they react harder to it. So 2-1. 2-1. That's all I do. Now, with electronics, if you have live scope and if you're looking at your bait, jerk bait, you don't need to follow the entire time. You can blind cast it and still catch 100 fish on Erie. It's just nice to see if a fish is following your bait, and you can see how long it's followed. If a fish has followed your bait for 60, 70 feet and you're doing the 2-1, it doesn't hurt to change it. I'm not saying it's going to make that fish bite or it's going to make that fish shine away, but if you just see a fish been following it forever, if obviously what you're doing, it's not going to bite. So just change up your cadence, play with it, but just same time, if you don't have live scope, if you don't have that technology, you do 2-1. If that fish doesn't bite, it was never meant to be anyway. So, at the end of the day, it's a fish's decision whether it's going to bite or not, however you feel about electronics and fishing. So I utilize it as a tool like that. It definitely, I've caught a couple extra fish just because I've changed up my cadence. When you see a follower like that, um, that's pretty much it as far as the setup goes. We'll get into my jerkbait line now. Like I said earlier, anytime you see me throwing a jerkbait, 100% of the time it's going to be one of mine. So I have 3 of them here, 3 different models here. I do have a 4th model, the 110 plus 2. It's personally my favorite bait. I've sold it for the last couple years if you followed along, but lots of times, or not lots of times, but pretty much every year it's been my, not worst selling, but it sells way less than the other shallower models that jerkbait sell for. So say I sell 1,000 jerk baits and a regular 110 and then 1,000 plus 1 model and 1,000 plus 1 junior model like my other models. Maybe I'd sell like 200 plus 2. So it's not on the website, but if you say, hey, Nick, can I get some of your plus 2s? Can I get it in this color? It's not a big deal whatsoever because it's my favorite bait. The plus 2 for me, I fish Lake Erie, of course, where you're fishing a jerk bait up to about 20 foot of water, fishing over 20 foot. So you need a jerk bait that's going to get down 10 foot every cast, and that's what that plus 2 is great for. If you long line it, throw it on shorter line, or just make a bomb cast, you can get it down 15 foot. But, you know, across the country, that's not very useful for a lot of situations. Honestly, I don't throw the plus 2 much anywhere else other than Erie. So to me, it's just a Great Lakes tactic. I grew up throwing a Stacey. Stacey kind of is the same thing. It was one of my favorite jerk baits. Still is a favorite jerk bait. I'll throw that, and sometimes I weigh the Stacey's down just to get them a little deeper if I'm out like 25 foot. So I guess that's the one time you'll see me not throwing my own brand, but it will be custom painted just because I got paint. You know, I got to at least paint it. So plus 2, you know, that my favorite go-to. But outside of that, you know, we'll start with the regular 110. Has the tungsten weight transfer, of course, you can hear it. About 3 to 5 foot suspending. Got the BKK split rings and hooks on there, which are just deadly sharp. The BKK is super similar, like an owner stinger, which is what my dad used to love until I switched over to the BKKs. And he's like, you know, to us, I don't see much of a difference in the treble hook of a BKK and an owner. Not saying they're the same, but to me, for how I can get these in wholesale, it makes so much sense to be using these hooks. Black nickel hooks, of course. So that 110, the regular, we'll just call it the 110 regular, 3 to 5 foot. It's going to suspend nose down, just like that. And it's just perfect for a lot of applications. You can fish this bait in like 4 foot. Now, you don't want to fish it super shallow because, like every other jerkbait brand, the bill is a little fragile. If you ever bust a bill, message me, call me, email me, whatever. I'll send you a new one, whether it's, who cares, whatever happened. If you bust the bill, I'll replace it. So like if you fish this bait and it's like you got boulders that are only 2 foot down and you're just banging that bait into a boulder, unfortunately with every jerkbait, the bill's going to snap doing that just because you think how much force when you hit a jerkbait, you know, when you're working a jerkbait, you're ripping it. So you think how fast and how much force that bait is when it's crashing into something. So it's physics at the end of the day. When you're hitting it that hard, it's just going to bam and break the bill. So I do replace them. You know, even if you're fishing in 1 foot in boulders, of course that's on me to sell a bait that holds up. So ever have any issue like that, hit me up and be happy to make it right for you. So that's a great bait. Largemouth, whenever I largemouth fish anywhere around the house or in Presque Isle Bay, usually I have just a regular 110 tied on, and that's good up till you can catch fish in 10 foot of water with that if it's clear like it is on Erie. So, you know, even though you're only getting 5 foot out of it, still you're going to be drawing fish from a little bit further down. So that'll get into the plus 1. This is just the regular 110 plus 1 that we do. Again, has the tungsten internals in it, BKK hooks, split rings, all that good stuff. Just a little bit deeper bill like everyone else has to offer. This bait, I say, you know, dives and suspends around 5 to 8 foot of water, 5 to 10 foot of water. Depending on your line and everything in your cast. So it's a great bait for if you're fishing over, say, 12 to 15 foot. You know, it's a little bit clear. It's a great bait for that because with a jerk bait, you never want it just on the bottom like a crankbait. I mean, if it's on the bottom, you know, it's not the end of the world. You can still catch fish like that. But you never want a jerk bait on the bottom like a crankbait. You always want it at least above the bottom of the water, like a foot or two suspended off of it. So if your water is 5 foot, you're going to throw the regular. But if you're fishing over 10 foot, say, maybe try the plus 1. You may tick bottom every once in a while. But it's a great bait for getting down to those depths. I throw it a lot on Erie. But of course, when you have the plus 2, you can kind of get it the same depth. So I throw this bait more around the house for deeper largemouth stuff. When I'm fishing for largemouth in like 12 foot of waters, I get more use out of it that way. And then we have its little brother, the +1 Junior. It's been a very popular bait. We just came out with this past show season where it continued to do them. Of course, it has the tungsten weight transfer system. It's a little bit smaller. This bait probably weighs about 3/8 ounce, I believe, on the scale. The other two models weigh all half ounce. This bait, you can throw it on bait casters fine, but me personally, this is a spinning pole jerk bait. I just feel like I'm more accurate with a spinning pole if I'm trying to make an accurate cast uh, with a jerk bait anyways, regardless of whatever size it is. I'm a spinning pole jerkbait nut, which is a lot of people look as weird, but I've caught a lot of fish on it. So a little bit smaller bait has size 8 hooks, which may seem small, but I can promise you that this bait has no problem with 6-pound smallmouth. I've never caught a 6-pound largemouth on a +1 Junior yet, but these BKKs are just deadly sharp, and I don't see any issues with durability or wise being a little bit smaller of a bait with dealing with bigger fish. So this has just been a great bait. It gets down about the same as the +1, 4 to 8 foot, but you can fish it a little shallower if that makes sense. Mainly when I'm fishing Erie, I'll have 2 or 3 jerk baits tied on. I'll have +1 Junior tied on a spinning pole, and I'll throw that anywhere up to about 12, 15 foot of water, honestly, with how clear it is. And then I'll have a +2 and probably a regular tied on is kind of how I roll with my Erie jerkbait fishing. So that +1 Junior is just really good at, it's just a little bit smaller of a bait. Not saying smallmouth have any issue hitting, a little bit bigger of a bait. The 110 is about 4.5 inches. The +1 Junior is just under 4 inches. I think it's like 3 3/4. So it's not like a massive difference. You're talking about a half-inch difference, but whether it gets you more bites or not, who knows? But I just have a lot of confidence in this bait up on Erie and around the house fishing for largemouth. I just really like it. You catch a lot of fish on it because of its size, and I think it's just a great bait over around. If you're a jerkbait nut, I'm sure you probably have some similar baits, smaller jerkbaits that get down. Like Lucky Craft had the Pointer 78 DD and XD for a while. Those are obviously great jerkbaits. So it's kind of in that same world of just a smaller deep diving jerkbait for smallmouth. It's just fantastic. We'll go through anything else we have for jerkbait fishing. Like I said, just that 2-1 line. We covered the line. I think that's about it. If you have any questions about jerkbait fishing or what we talked about in the beginning of the video, please comment. We do need some name suggestions for the new bait for the Folks Bait Company. We'll have those pictures in there so you can kind of see what it looks like. And next video we'll have them right here. We'll have the bait club boxes available. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. We'll catch you next week when we put that new video up, and we'll keep going from there. So I appreciate you guys. Mason, anything you want to add in?
No, just want to say thank you to all the viewers and the commenters, and really glad for the positive reception for these videos. We're going to keep it rocking and rolling, and we really appreciate the audience and all the viewers. Thank you so much for tuning in, and you can expect these to be a regular production. So thanks everybody.
Thank you, guys.